There was this one weekend that my aunt, uncle, and cousins went away upstate and, instead of taking their dog with them, where to a kennel, they asked me to watch her for the weekend at their house. I was excited to do so because not only would they pay me, but they are loaded and their house is full of fun stuff to do. They had the Havanese, which is a tiny dog. Her name is Luna. I didn't mind watching Luna because she was such a calm, low-maintenance dog. I just fed her twice a day and let her out back a couple times a day. She always followed me whatever room I was in, so if I was in the giant living room watching TV, she'd be laying on the floor in the center of the room. If I went downstairs to the basement to play video games, she followed and would lay down there while playing video games. In the basement, Luna suddenly lifted her head from the ground and stared in the direction of the boiler room. I had a dog before, and I knew this was something dogs did to any slight sound, but it was still enough of a reason for me to pause the game and feel a little unsettled. I looked in the direction of the boiler room as well. It was silent and dark in there, and there was no chance of me going in there, so I unpaused the game and continued playing, albeit a bit uncomfortable. Now I guess my childish fears were getting the better of me. She put her head back down for a minute, but then again I lifted it up and looked towards the boiler room. Deep down I knew it was probably nothing, but I was still a bit too freaked out to continue playing video games comfortably, so I turned everything off and ran up the stairs, shutting the door once Luna came hopping up. They also had another big gaming room on the main floor. It was kind of disconnected from the rest of the house, and that you had to go through a narrow hallway to get there. Luna plopped herself down in front of my feet in this little game room. I played more video games for a while until it got late. Then I went down the hall to the room I'd be sleeping in, a guest bedroom that was nicer than my bedroom. Back at home, I threw on a pair of sweatpants and a white undershirt, his pajamas, and jumped under the covers, not going to sleep without watching a little TV first. Luna was obviously by the bedside. She was really growing on me how affectionate yet calm she was. I eventually turned off the TV and went to sleep. My sleep was disturbed by a growling sound. I turned on the bed's lamp and saw Luna laying still on the floor, head down yet growling at something. I said her name a few times, but she didn't look at me. Then she lifted her head finally to look at the closet door. Her growling grew more intense and she stood up, now still looking at the closet. She didn't bark though. In fact, I never heard her bark once. I looked at the closet, a sliding wooden door closet. It was open about 3 inches from the left side. Of course, I couldn't really see anything from the inside. I got up from the bed really sneaky like and tiptoed closer to the closet. I don't know what I was planning on doing really. I guess I just wanted to look through the crack or see if I could hear something. When I got about 5 feet away from the closet door, something that I couldn't see for my bed came into view through the crack of the door, and I couldn't see any face or anything. It was too dark, but I knew what I was looking at in that closet was a person's eye, perfectly tucked between the wall and the edge of the door, looking into the room, or now at me. I screamed, but it didn't do much good since I was alone. I took Luna and ran for the front door, grabbing the emergency cell phone on the counter to call 911. During my run away from the house, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't bother calling my aunt and uncle. The cops did a thorough sweep and found someone in the pantry closet downstairs. I never saw him though, because another officer was preoccupying me with conversation to calm me down. I was just relieved to go back inside, knowing I was the only one in the house. besides Luna of course, who just might have saved my life that night. A cold December in Vermont countryside, home alone for the night watching my friend's dog Chester doing him a favor. Even though it was unbearably cold outside, I couldn't let his dog out in the yard. We don't have fences up here, so he could easily run into the woods and get lost. That meant unfortunately I had to take him for a walk in the cold. My friend gave me an old dirty blue tearing leash to use. Chester seemed excited when I hooked up the leash ring onto his collar ring, and he instantly pulled me towards the front door. I could already tell he'd be a pain in the ass to walk. Stepping out into the cold was a major shock to my body. I just wanted to get through this walk as soon as possible. I ran a little bit with Chester just to warm myself up. He stopped us to sniff one of the countless trees on the side of the dirt road. I thought for sure he'd do his business, but then he perked up and stared off into the woods. Then his deep loud bark started echoing through the woods as he tugged and tried to pull me into the woods. I tried my hardest to hold him back, but the leash snapped at a weak point and off Chester went into the woods, disappearing in seconds. His barking faded away into the woods until I couldn't hear it anymore. I chased after him, screaming his name. He probably ran off chasing a deer or a small animal or something, but with only the light of my phone I knew I wouldn't be able to find him. You would have to come back to me on his own. After a while, I stood in place and continuously called Chester's name. I heard footsteps nearby and got excited that Chester must have been coming back, but as the footsteps got louder I realized they were much too loud, slow and heavy to be a dog's foot. Friends, they sounded more like American noise, not for legs. I turned out my light, now convinced I was hearing the footsteps of a person. The footsteps seemed to be circling me. My fear was if it was intentional or not, and if I'd been seen after or not. I tried my best to tiptoe back to the road. I was covering decent distance, and then the sound of the footsteps just stopped or made it away. I don't remember noticing which one, but because of this I was more laxed with my footsteps and walked a little faster. Little did I realize that the black object I was walking towards it was a person's back. I stopped as it felt like my heart did too. I was covering my mouth, trying not to make a sound, but it was obviously too late. The person definitely heard my footsteps at this point. I took a chance and asked if they had by some chance seen my dog, but they didn't even turn around. They had their hood on, so I couldn't even gauge what they looked like. I took another chance and put my hand on their shoulder, and once again felt like my heart stopped. The shoulder felt hard and wooden. I walked in front of the body, facing the tree, and so on. Nothing inside of the hood, nothing but a long stick holding it up. It was some kind of fake dummy. Then whatever was making those footsteps was still nearby. I didn't care about the noise anymore. I just ran back to the road and then up the hill and back to the house. I never went back for Chester, and he never came back to the house. Telling my friend was the worst part. He hated me afterwards, and I expected he would, given though we weren't exactly the closest friends to begin with. Already that night though, I had a nightmare that I was in my room, and I heard Chester's barks out in the woods like scared whimpering touch marks. I woke up and looked out the window to the dark woods, hoping the barks were real and I just heard them in my dream, but they weren't. It was silent. I don't know what happened to Chester. I don't know what the dummy was doing in the woods, and I don't know who was making those footsteps that night. Quite frankly, I'm not sure I want to know the answer to any of it.